court and introduce our first speaker, who is Amber Alliger from the psychology department, who will share how these shells have worked for her particular course. Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, I guess I should share my screen. I'm really happy to see some of my colleagues here. All right, so you can see my screen. Hopefully, if you can't, please let me know. Move this down so I can actually make this large for you guys, though I imagine this might be big enough. Actually, yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Everyone, Julie, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm really glad to see some familiar faces, and especially Amber Martin. I think this would be great for some of my colleagues who have multi-section classes. That will be really helpful for you, as it has been for the department and me in particular. So just to show you, I've done a template for 2 courses, and that includes our Intro to Psych course and the Statistics course. So a little bit depth on both of those, but basically we have a template of each of those. So the great thing is that once that creation of the template is made, this can be incredibly easily copied to other people's BB folders. In fact, I've even copied it to other CUNY colleges, have asked me for my template, and have looked it over to see if they are interested in using the template. And my templates are also open education resource. So people have been really interested in that as well. So this, as I said, it can be easily copied into other folders, just within seconds. And this is really great. And I know Valerie Kate is on here with me. She can speak to this, that it's really been helpful for having new teachers come on board to help them with the material, especially adjuncts, especially ones that are hired under short situations. And so we've given them all the materials that they need to have or want to have. And also, I think another thing, and hopefully others can chime in about this, is that I think it's created a lot of consistency over our courses, which, is really important to know what our students are coming out with, and that are they getting the right information. And just because we've created this course also doesn't mean that the individual teachers can't adjust it. So I think that's really important to know, and to tell whoever it is you're giving this to, look, here is a base of material, but feel free to do what you want with it. So just to go over, all aspects of the course can be brought over. So the book, if it is embedded, so for example, I use 2 OER books in my 2, and that comes over all my homework questions, the tests, all the resources, everything can come over at once, and it's just extremely helpful. Or of course, if you want to change that, you can delete and add anything you want at any point to make it really individualized. Or just say they just want the homework questions, and they can just take that. So really makes it incredibly easy. So just a few aspects to be careful about when a new teacher brings over information. Of course, the deadlines of everybody's classes will be different from each other. So this is the one thing that has to be individualized for the particular class. So, homework might be due or due different dates, of course. Also, submission rules may need to be changed or want to be changed. So for example, how many attempts do you want your students to have might not have been what was in the template, or which attempt is submitted, was at the highest or an average. So these are aspects that individual teachers do have to look at, even if the template does come over. The bad, question mark, the good, absolutely, of templates. So potentially a large amount of work to create. It took me a long time to create my stats course. It did not take me a long time to make my psych intro course. Thank God for Xiao. She and Abigail, and thank you, Abigail, so much, both of you, for creating and doing the brunt of this work, and really helping me bring that on and teaching me so much about that. So one course took me a really long time. One course did not, thankfully. But you can imagine at the end, I mean, the time saving it creates for everybody. I don't think we should be recreating the wheel every time, especially looking at consistency. I think that, giving this information and material to other teachers is the way we should share our work together. I think we should really share. The only problem I see with sharing a lot of work is that sometimes when I'm observing these teachers teach, they don't understand it quite maybe on the level that the creator knows. So there's one thing to when you create something, you really know it. But overall, you know, and we see that good consistency between the classes. And again, helping and hopefully knowing that adjuncts are giving our materials, giving good material and the correct materials to our students. So just to show you an example. So here is an example of my stats class. And so I have the textbook and the homework questions and the class materials and the homework assignments. These are all aspects, quizzes. These are all aspects that can come over. Another aspect that we can do is give directions right in the announcement page. So if, if students, when a teacher brings over material, we can give them directions of how to do it right here. And also I created a video of how to do it as well. So that I know our director, Valerie Kate, sends out when new teachers want to make templates and bring them over to them. And that's about it.
Thank you so much, Amber. And thank you for sharing some tips also that you've learned along the way. And a shout out to all your OER materials too, that you've been working on so hard for the last years. And so good to see that they have a home, not only at Hunter and beyond, because that's the idea of OER, right?
And one incredible thing is, our stats program is using our entire, all sections are using the books and most of the intro as well. So it's really incredible to see that it is being used.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. So now we'll move over to Brian Collins, who's in the Department of Curriculum and Teaching at the School of Ed, where he is in the bilingual education program, and share how they're using the course templates in his program.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everybody. As Julie mentioned, I'm Brian Collins, and I coordinate the bilingual ed program. And we created the, we call them the development course or source course for all of our program classes in the summer of 2020. The public schools or the DOE wanted us to offer a fully online advanced certificate, which includes 5 classes. So we had a little bit of funding available to support a group of part-time and full-time faculty to work in the summer to create the courses. So it was both a great opportunity to develop the online Blackboard courses, but also meet and discuss the curriculum and share what we're doing across the different courses. And because we would have issues sometimes that instructors would start teaching the same thing in course A as course B. So it was a great opportunity to kind of align all of our curriculum, but also similar to psychology and Amber's program, we have multiple sections of the course. So we wanted to be able to create the resource so that we didn't have to, as she said, recreate the wheel each time it's offered. And so I'm going to share the screen and share a little bit about what we did and some of the good and the bad. This was, as I mentioned, in 2020. And so as it turns out, we had developed our fully online program prior to the shutdown. So when the shutdown arrived in the spring of, let me think, now I'm getting my years a little bit mixed up here, as tends to happen. So shutdown was in 2020. So no, this was 2019 that we developed all the courses. So when the shutdown happened in 2020, we had all of our courses already. We were teaching them online for this particular program, but when all of the other programs had to go online, we had the resources all available. So that we were very fortunate in that sense. And we really had, a real seamless transition to move online. So I'm sharing my screen with you. These are my, my whole homepage for Blackboard. But these are our 5 core classes. Well, it looks like 6, but it's really 5 classes within that program. And so these are the source courses. And for each of them, we created all of the weekly coursework for the 15 sessions. And that includes all of the readings and the tests and the discussion boards. And we did that for each of the courses. And so when we bring on a new instructor, we're able to copy this course into their individualized course, and then they can customize it there. And so it works really well so that they don't have to, a lot of our courses, we don't use a textbook. They're individual readings and articles. And so searching out all of those articles doesn't have to happen each semester. So even to have that course available for the same instructor that is teaching the course each semester, it's a great resource. In terms of consistency across the sections, sharing of materials, alignment, lightening the prep time, all of this was a great help for that. Some of the issues that we have encountered is one we were talking before we all started the meeting today is, the default online program is Blackboard, but in the School of Ed, a lot of instructors prefer to use Google Classroom because this is the platform that's used in the public schools. And so it really aligns with what teachers are doing in the schools. And so although we're able to have kind of a model of what the course looks like, instructors that prefer to teach in Google Classroom then have to kind of recreate the whole class in Google Classroom, but then they have it there to repeat each semester. But there really is this kind of strong preference, and it brings up the issue, you have the consistency, but in terms of academic freedom, when you have individual instructors, you can give them the model, but you also want to allow them the flexibility to bring in their own readings. And if they really do have a strong preference towards, using Google Classroom, it's not a situation that you want to say, no, you have to use Blackboard. Although our hope was that we could really get everybody to use Blackboard, because that way then students don't have to relearn a new platform each time. And likewise, when they go to a new course, they can, all of these courses all have the same structure. This is something that we set up with Sha. We met with her and had all of the links the same, and the way that we organized the weekly work was very similar, so that students really didn't have to spend a lot of time trying to find where things are and could just get right to the work. And then in terms of tech issues, Blackboard, I love Blackboard. I think it's very well organized, but there are a couple kind of tricky points when using the source courses, and it's very problematic to add users. It's kind of tricky. Always instructors are having trouble adding users and copying. Some issues do arise, as Amber alluded to. Like the deadlines, but also discussion boards. You have to be careful that sometimes discussions, if you're using a course that was populated with students previously, those could get copied over to the new course. And then lastly, as it turns out, many of our instructors have kind of been teaching the same courses since we've developed these courses. And so while we have our source courses, we maintain them here. What's kind of happened is we copy them into their course, and they get fine-tuned and developed as you're teaching the course, and they're developing kind of a life of their own. And so the concern is that these are slowly getting outdated. And so that's just something to keep in mind, how to take all of those changes from the copied course and make sure that they get integrated into the developmental course as each semester goes by. And I think that's basically it. But I would say the main advantage is really, when you're bringing on new instructors for multiple sections and the alignment between, between courses and sections. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was so terrific to see and to hear. And I also really liked how you described this as a discussion you had about pedagogy among colleagues and made some changes together. It was not just to get the materials online, but it was really about what really do we want our students in these courses to be reading, to be doing, and that it was a program effort. So thanks so much for sharing that as well.
Yeah, that was a big piece. We really learned a lot from each other as well.
Yeah, because I think it's a lot. We collect a lot of great materials, and sometimes that aren't always shared. And so it seems that a lot of sharing and exchanging happened by setting up, thanks to setting up the template. So that's great to hear. Our last speaker today is Lisa Marie Anderson, who's the chair of German, who's also an ASSERT steering committee member. And she will share a bit more with us today how these templates have worked for many years in their German courses.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for inviting me to share this with you all today, and thanks everybody for being here. I don't know that for many years is the right way to put it. One of the things that I want to share with you today is a little bit of the journey that we've been on and some of the changes that we made in these multi-section courses on Blackboard. Like Brian, my colleagues and I built what I'm going to show you in the summer of 2020. And like Brian, with a little bit of funding from the college. And like Amber, I have to give huge thanks to Xiao and Abby for really helping us get this off the ground. So it was a collaborative effort, both around the college and in my department, and one of my departmental colleagues who worked on this with me is here. So I'm going to share my screen now and show you. All right, can you see my Blackboard? Great.
Yes.
Okay, so you can see here the 4 developmental courses that we have for our beginning and intermediate German courses. These are multi-section courses offered every semester, and they're taught by a wide range of different faculty, both full-time and adjuncts each time. So this has been just a great thing to have, and you can see that these developmental courses have in a way replaced other things that we had previously been trying, all these things that are not currently available, right? We had tried a Blackboard site for supplemental materials. We had tried what we called the master. We had tried something for our worksheets, et cetera. And really these developmental courses have replaced all that and given us a good way to share curriculum across multi-sections and different instructors. These developmental courses that you're seeing, and I'll show you one in a minute, they have no enrollments. They have no student enrollment, so there's not that issue that Brian alluded to during the copy. Once I do the copy into the various section sites, there's a little bit of cleanup to be done, but the enrollments are really fresh each time. And I update each one of these each semester and then copy it into each of the section sites so that, you know, as you've heard, each instructor receives the same material. And they know that after that, they can customize their own sites, right? But they're starting with the template that the department has provided. We too have spent time as a department talking about this, talking through, for example, what should the default settings be for Blackboard tests and assignments? And yes, instructors can change that, including, you know, point values, deadlines, all of that. But it's been a way for us to have a conversation about what the defaults are going to be. So let me show you the 101 developmental course briefly. These 2 sections here, instructor and announcements, will be done by the instructor for each section. So they're blank when I copy them over. These are the parts that I'm giving the instructor of each section, each semester. There's an orientation section for the student, and a lot of this came from Xiao and Abby. Each instructor provides their own welcome to the students, but there's also a welcome letter from the department. There's information about how a hybrid or online class works. There's tips for succeeding specifically in a language course. There is a survey between the student and the instructor if the instructor wants to do it at the beginning of the semester. And there's an opportunity for each instructor to include their own icebreaker for their class, whether it's a Padlet or something else, some way for the section to get to know each other, right? So an orientation to the student. These courses use a common syllabus. And so this has been a really nice way to deliver that common syllabus that we've all discussed and updated in between semesters, and to know that everybody's working from the same most updated syllabus, right? From learning outcomes to textbook information, grading policy, all the information that we want students to have. But as you know, it changes a little bit each semester. And so this is a nice way to know that everybody's working with the same syllabus. And we've decided on a short syllabus quiz at the end for students to answer a couple questions to show that they've actually read the syllabus. There's a web project, which I won't talk about today. There are videos that the students can watch about certain grammar points that they find especially challenging. But I want to spend just my last couple minutes here sharing with you the coursework section of the developmental courses, which is really the bulk of it. We have links to the audio that students are going to need all semester on a YouTube channel. We have instructions to students for typing their answers in Blackboard, because sometimes Blackboard has issues with characters in other languages, right? We even have instructions for students about how to submit an assignment in Blackboard. That way every instructor doesn't have to respond every time a student says, wait a second, how do I submit this in Blackboard, right? That's all there. So our textbook series is divided up into chapters, or Lektionen in German. And as you can see, when these get copied over to the instructors, only the first chapter is available to students, visible to students. Everything is visible to the instructors, but the grayed out here means that the students aren't seeing it yet, and the students only see it when each individual instructor decides to make it available. And we thought that would be a little less overwhelming to students than seeing everything the first time they log in, right? But there's a folder for each chapter. Again, there are student surveys that the instructor can choose whether they want to use or not. Maybe they prefer to make their own, but at least there's something here for them to think about. And I'll just show you one chapter as an example. Each chapter opens with a dialogue where we have the audio embedded right here in Blackboard. Yes, students can go out to the YouTube channel, but it's also right here for them. We've got images from our textbook built in, but this has also given us a chance to find other images online that we can include to make things, you know, sometimes a little more bright. And here's a photo of an actual cafeteria at a German university, right? So we've been able to build more things in that way. And then each chapter ends with the worksheets that the students are asked to complete. And as you can see, they have an option, or I should say maybe the instructor has an option, whether that's delivered as a Blackboard test where students submit the worksheet in Blackboard and get graded in Blackboard, or whether it's delivered to the student as a PDF for them to submit in some other way. So sometimes that's a decision that the instructor is making for their section. Sometimes that's a decision that the student is making based on their preference. But that's one of the nice things about these developmental courses, is that there's flexibility built in for instructors, for students, while at the same time, I have the reassurance that everyone's working with the same material each semester. So a lot of work to build initially, but now it's just a little bit of update each time. And, you know, as others have said, it's engaged us in some good conversations about pedagogy along the way. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, if that's okay, Julie.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. And I thank you also for showing how you can make certain parts visible to the students and just the instructor. And you really use that very smartly by putting some instruction. You could put this here, or you could put that there, and just really like guiding them through the template that way. I think that's a really nice model. Thanks so much for sharing. So I'm going to stop recording here.